Hey YouTube, this is Christmas. I'm going to do a quick comparisons of the M1 Garand to the M1A, and I'm going to give you a little bit of history. I'm also going to give a little bit of what the upgrades are, since they're very similar rifles, came from the same basic design, and I'm going to go over a couple other things and some projects coming up. This is a M1 Garand. This is actually a M1 Garand from 1944. You can actually look up the serial numbers for most of these and find out the month they were produced. But this one's from May 44, so you can kind of imagine where it may have been or may not have been. But the original design for the M1 Garand was from the late 20s, originally produced I believe in 32, and was by John Garand, who is a Canadian working for the Springfield Armory. Came up with the design, and eventually it was adopted mid to late 30s. Pretty much the design of the rifle itself hasn't changed at all for the M1 Garand, aside from 39 they redid on the end. Instead of having the gas system it has now, it had a gas trap, and it'd catch the gases after they'd left the barrel. They decided to do away with that. They drilled the barrel and they brought back the gas system, and they're catching it from the barrel itself, which is basically how most semi-automatic rifles work, aside from the rifles that work on the recoil principle. But 30-06 has a rotating bolt, semi-automatic, clip fed, which means that you have 8 rounds of 30-06, and it loads from the top, and you fire your 8 rounds. After your 8th round fires, it'll pop out your empty clip, which was a downside the Allies found, so much that they were going to make a plastic clip. You can look up any of the videos. Military Channel did a great series on combat arms, and this was one of them. But I'm not gonna beat a old horse to death with the same stuff you've already learned. But it's a great rifle. It's been compared as the Cadillac of semi-automatics. This particular one is in really good shape. We did away with these in favor of the M14, which was the upgrade, and the upgrade to the M14 in the late 50s, 57 was when the M14 came into service. They stopped issuing it, I believe, in 70 for the M16, but M14 was a great service weapon, and the M1A came around because people wanted an M14, but they couldn't have one because it was semi and fully automatic. In the 70s, Springfield came out with their M1A line, and it's basically an M14 without the select fire. But the originals all the way up to the 80s and 90s were still built on USGI parts, which are, I believe, a better quality than what you have now for most of these. Not that any of Springfield's or Fulton Armory's weapons are subpar by any means, but the USGI parts were mil spec, a better, all in all, a better quality. So if you can find a good M1A from the 80s, early 90s, chances are you have a lot of USGI original parts. Even the stocks all the way into the 90s, you find one, sometimes it's cut out right here. Well, that was for the selector switch for the M14. But I'm going to go ahead and go more into the M1A. This one here is a California legal M1A. basically what that means is instead of having the flash hider, it has a muzzle brake. The original M1 Garand had a 24-inch barrel. For the M14 and the M1A, they cut it down to a 22-inch barrel, and instead of having a just an end for it, they did add the flash hider. Made it a little harder for people to identify the exact spot you fired your round from. Gives you, a foot to the left, a foot to the right, which makes all the difference, really. But aside from that, they went ahead and they shortened the gas operating system. Instead of the gas operating system running almost the whole length of the barrel, they went ahead and they cut it back, which helped. You used less pressure from the barrel. Also, they upgraded to the 308 round, or 7.62 by 51, over the 30-06. The reason for that was they shortened the round. They were looking for a new round when they were building the M14, and they had the Savage 300, which was basically it was another 30 caliber cartridge. Well, they cut down the cartridge. They had better powders than they had for the 30-06s then, and for that they cut it down the Savage 300, and they came out with the 7.62 by 51 NATO, or the 308 Win. That way they could make the round shorter but still keep the 2,800 feet per second muzzle velocity. Here's something: if you do go out and get yourself a M1 Garand, it is suggested that you do not use newer style ammunition. The gas pressure is too high for a 30-06, and you could damage the gas operating system of a M1 Garand. Don't quote me on the newer ones, the new productions from Fulton Armory. I believe Springfield also does a newer M1 Garand. But you can also pick up the M1 Garands. There's a kit where they convert these to 308. I've never used it, never even seen anybody who has it, but I know it exists if that's something you wanted to do. Aside from the new cartridge, or the new round, they went ahead and added a detachable magazine. Right here, this is a 10-round mag. Normally they were issued with 20-round mags, which are, when you side by side them, significantly larger. Generally for me shooting, I just shoot from the bench rest. I don't shoot with a 20-round magazine generally. It just gets in the way, and I just shoot for target. I'm not, hunting down zombies or something, or slaying the Mongolian hordes. But they did go ahead and add a detachable magazine. It can still be clip fed, but not in the sense of the M1 Garand. The M14 can be clip fed, and what I mean by clip is, instead of the block that held 8 rounds, this is actually this is 5.56. It could be clip fed. You could lock your 7.62 rounds in there and slide it down, and you would feed the magazine. Either way works. I just load the mags and put it in the bottom. This eventually be removed. This right here is the holder for the clips, or the clip guide. I'm not sure the exact name for it. Someone will probably correct me in the comments, because you guys do that a lot. But I'm going to replace that when I put on the scope base. But aside from that, the general idea for the rifle hasn't changed much. The twist rate has stayed the same. It's a 1 to 10 right hand twist. Not a huge amount of changes. I'm sure there are little ones here and there aside from the stock and the obvious, cosmetic things. But the same basic principles work for the how the operating system works for this rifle from one to another, between the M1 Grands and the M1As and the M14s. All in all, great rifles. I do want to add one more thing about the M1 Garand. If you get a chance to pick up an original M1 Garand, I suggest you do it. They're slowly coming off the market. Collectors are finding them, and they're getting them, and they're holding on to them. So anything nice generally is going to be in a collection, or the price is just going to keep going up and up and up. These are true relics of the greatest generation ever, which was the name for the generation that fought World War II. In my lifetime, I've seen the last veteran of World War I has passed away, and also in my lifetime, the last veteran of World War II will probably pass. You gotta think how long ago the war was, and these are true representations of the time period, of how much was put into these, and then what has been accomplished was so little compared to, if you compare this to today's ARs, any of the rifles we have today. But great rifles, they represent a piece of the past, our history. If you're an American, they're tremendous rifles. They're awesome. If you can pick one up and put it in your collection, I strongly suggest you do. There's just not much else I can say about that without beating the horse to death. I do want to go into some projects I have coming up. I'm going to take this M1. This is a M1A loaded national match, and I'm going to take this. It's become a very popular model for a lot of people. It's not as expensive as the national match, and it's got a few more bells and whistles that people prefer over the regular, the standard M1A. But I'm going to take this. I'm going to show what you can do to slowly increase your accuracy, going from just iron sights, shooting 50 and 100 yard groupings with just iron sights. I'm going to go through your ammo. If you're shooting cheap NATO surplus, you're not going to get as good a quality that you would if you're shooting, say, Federal Gold or your own reloads. There's also a type of ammunition, American Eagle, that's specifically made for the M1A, or it's marketed for the M1A. I'm going to test that out and see if it's true, if it's just a marketing gimmick. I'm going to compare it to some others. I'm also going to start upgrading the gas piston, the spring guide, a few other things on a glass bed, and there's more. I have some more things I want to do to it. Add a scope base and a good scope. Everything I'm going to do is going to be within the price range of a normal person, not someone who has unlimited funds that can drop, say, $1,400 into a Leopold, and then drop, X amount of dollars into a bunch of things that has bells and whistles that most of us will never use. If you can afford it, go for it. But most people, after spending, between $1,700 and $2,000 on an M1A, most of us generally don't have enough money to go out and buy everything at once, and they want to see slowly what will help increase the accuracy. And that is my plan for this. I have some other plans coming up for other rifles I'm going to be working on, including a M1A-M1 project. But if you guys have any questions, if I missed anything, I'll probably readdress some of these later on. But if you guys have any questions, send them to YouTube. I'll try to get them out, or get out the answers if I can answer them. If I've given any misinformation, or you feel I've missed something, let me know and I'll make sure it's addressed. Alright, thank you.